What are the key distinctions you make between spirituality and religion?
Tim, science has really brought a great deal of insight into the nature of spirituality, the nature of religion, when understood through the lens of research. And it looks like this. If we take a twin study, we look at twins raised together and twins raised apart and factor out how similar they are as a function of genes and environment, we can determine the extent to which any human capacity, height, weight, eye color, sense of humor, is inborn versus environmentally formed. And so too, a twin study has been applied to spirituality and religion. Religion are beautiful world faith traditions, whether I am Christian or Hindu or Jewish or Muslim or Baha'i, whatever the tradition may be, is a gift of our parents and grandparents. It might be a tradition we pick up and into which we immerse ourselves. Religion is environmentally transmitted. Spirituality is different than religion. They can go hand in hand, but spirituality is innate. Spirituality is an inborn capacity in every single human being through which we can experience and know the deeper nature of life. Some people say higher power or God or Jesus. Some people say the universe. Whatever our word, we are built to receive and perceive the deeper nature of life. Spirituality and religion go hand in hand for about two-thirds of people. Two-thirds, particularly in the United States, two-thirds of people say, I am spiritual and I am religious. But whether or not we're religious, we're all born spiritual beings.
What I love most about your work is that you show that spirituality is a relational term. And what I mean by that is what the role of spirituality is in relation to our health. Broadly speaking, and not getting too deep in the weeds just yet, how do you think the appreciation for the effect of spirituality on our physical and mental health allows us to turn something that, largely speaking, can feel intangible and turn it into something that is concrete and grounded?
So spirituality, as we've seen it through the lens of science, is an inborn, hardwired capacity in the brain to see into the deeper love and the deeper guidance in life. We are all loved and we are all guided. And put even more, to nail it down even more precisely, we're all born to see the love and guidance in life. Two, the love and guidance in life is real. And so, three, every moment of every day in our lives, we have the choice to engage in a dialogue with the deeper nature of life. Now, when things are very, very challenging, for instance, if I lose someone I love, or if I'm ill, or if something I wanted so badly and worked so hard for doesn't happen, that can seem at the moment world shattering, right? It can feel like everything has broken, and the times it can even feel like the world as I knew it does not hold. That's actually what trauma is, not just being frightened or sad or disappointed, but when the world as I knew it, the ground under my feet shifted. That's trauma. When that happens, a spiritual response to suffering is a very profound way through the tunnel to the other side, because a spiritual response stops asking the question that we hear so often in society: what could I have done differently? Why is this happening to me? This sort of illusion of control, the not as I planned it type mindset that we're given in our society. I call it achieving awareness. Out from there to a far more open and life-giving stance, which is not why is this happening to me, but how is this happening for me? What life are you asking of me now? What higher power are you revealing to me now? What is life showing me now? Major change in perception. We are hardwired to be able to ask either question. It is our choice to be an open system, engage life in a dialogue and say, hey, life, God, higher power, What do you ask of me now? What are you showing me now?
Physical health and mental health are obviously terms that are huge in our society. And I feel like the next step for us as a culture is to adopt the term spiritual health. I feel like that isn't used as much or even at all. But going to what you said there, I think it can really help people if they bring that into the conversation of understanding, all right, how is my spirituality playing into my overall health here? What is the awakened brain and how does it play into that spiritual health framework?
Tim, you're so right. Spiritual health is the cutting edge of the whole person health and wellness movement. We've finally gotten there, and we've gotten there with a lot of science, a lot of wind in our sail. So much so that the recent Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, said there are 4 pillars of health: physical, mental, social, and, to your point, spiritual health. How was he able to do that? Because we now have 25 years of really good peer reviewed science that says spiritual health indeed is a pillar of whole person health and wellness. Tim, I would even go further and say that the spiritual core is the center of whole person formation, that physical and mental and social health all come forth from a good spiritual core. I'd say that's the heart. The awakened brain is our seat of seeing and knowing all life. We are born with a capacity to awaken, every one of us, but this capacity is 1/3 innate, 2/3 cultivated, which means that yes, every baby is born with a brain built to receive and perceive the deeper nature of life, but it is up to us to meditate, to pray, spiritual mind body work, service, reflection, whether it's scripture, whatever one's book or form of art may be, right? It is up to us. 2/3 environmentally formed. Well, that gives a lot of space, particularly for young adults, to cultivate their spiritual core, to strengthen the muscle. You were born with a brain poised and ready to awaken. But it really is our opportunity, the opportunity of our lifetime, to do the work, the 2/3, to awaken this gift.
That is so beautifully said. And yeah, that's truly remarkable when somebody can have the conscious awareness of that, of that's what their natural state is like, and then okay, let me do the work to unlock that. I mean, that is truly, truly empowering. So we've laid
And
the
it's work,
groundwork.
as you say, Tim, it's
Yeah,
work. And it's
yeah.
not always easy. I mean, it's often out of very painful, sad times, losses, disappointments, like big losses. Like, I really thought we were getting married and this person just broke my heart. Like, I was going to play center forward and I've just permanently injured myself. I'll never play again. I mean, the big disappointments are actually the double door
Yeah.
to an awakening.
Yeah,
What
those things
life
that happen against your will ultimately become the launching pad for that awakening.
what life are you showing me now? When I feel so bruised and so pained that I can't stand it, God, please open my heart so I can feel you. And there's God. Right?
Hmm.
There's in these moments of total emptiness and despair, huge openings. But we've got to say yes and we've got to hand it over. It's not just in AA or NA that you hand it over. We're built to hand it over. Hand it over every day of our lives. Tim, we're an open system. Science shows us the brain is like an antenna. We're an open system. We're not like a factory that makes up thoughts. We're an antenna that receives true, real, spiritual guidance, true, real consciousness, information, love. So, what God do you show me now? What life do you want from me now? These are real questions. Ask your higher power, ask the deeper source of life, and you truly will get an answer. All we have to do is hand it over. But the most important core of our whole being, we must cultivate. And there's far too little discussion of this amongst friends and society. We can help each other if we bring it forward, like you're doing right here.
How did your clinical internship in Manhattan act as the launching pad for all this for you?
So, Tim, I was in my mid 20s, and at this point, I was a new intern. I'd just gotten my PhD. I was working at a hospital in New York. And I looked around and I saw that people were really suffering. I mean, so depressed, so despairing, a lot of addiction. And to be honest, they were really not getting much better. They might be sort of pumped up with drugs for a few weeks, sent out in the world, but like clockwork, the same people were coming back month after month. So it was clear to me that at that time, mental health really, you know, there were good people in it. We were trying, but it wasn't working. And I started listening to the patients, and the patients would say, "Hey, Dr. Miller, will you come here? Dr. Miller, will you come here? And come over here." Very, very suffering, pained patients often meant to a quiet, hidden spot where no one else is going to see me. Dr. Miller, and this quiet spot could be behind a door. Dr. Miller, this quiet spot could be in the kitchen or the pantry. Will you pray with me? The patients knew. We, in our most excruciating, painful moment, know that we can hand it over and will be held. We will be loved and we will be guided out of the abyss. Mental health had yet to engage the deepest source of reality, the hub of the whole person. So I then dedicated the next 30 years of my life to taking the lens of science, the language that mental health understands and takes to be legitimate and valid and paradigm changing, held up the lens, MRI studies, genotyping studies, long-term clinical course studies, and said, wow, in peer-reviewed, published top journals, humans are naturally spiritual beings. And not only is this our greatest resource, it is our foremost way of seeing through the most excruciating moments of our lives, a spiritual response to suffering. What God do you ask of me now? Please, higher power, show me the way through. Jesus, Hashem, Allah, universe, show me a way, guide me. And an answer comes.
Yeah, from my own experiences, I feel like true healing cannot exist or begin to occur without some type of spiritual embrace. And I feel like the initial lack of spirituality in that internship for you and your patients, but then the subsequent introduction of it really shows that. But what I've also learned from healing, it's about getting to the root cause of things. And so within the medical system, I feel like it's not so much just about exposing patients or individuals to spirituality, but it's also about getting to the root of it with the medical system as a whole, but also medical professionals, with not just exposing them to spirituality, but speaking ideally about having, medical individuals truly start to embrace spirituality and appreciate what you're saying is spirituality is that core pillar, and then physical, mental, and social revolve around that. How do we go about doing that?
You're so right that increasingly the field of medicine and psychiatry is starting to look at what is now 2 decades of really strong peer review science and say, okay, one, we know everyone is a spiritual being. Two, that it is our choice and our effort and our commitment to cultivating the spiritual core. Just like a muscle, we can build the strength of our spiritual brain. We can awaken and strengthen the awakened brain. Once we awaken and strengthen the awakened brain, we are less addicted, less depressed, and more able to marshal a spiritual response to suffering. So just as we might lift weights and build strong arms and a strong back and be ready to go and have a strong physical core, when we strengthen our spiritual core, we're fit and ready to go in life. Life still is going to bring rainstorms. Life still is going to bring hailstorms, but we are fit and ready for life. I worked with the Pentagon for several years on the Spiritual Readiness Initiative. The Pentagon was way out in front using the science, the most innovative institution I've seen. And what the Pentagon did was say, we know the science paints a clear picture that every soldier, every man and woman in our army will be more fit and ready if they have a strong spiritual core. And they did it. Just, as we're saying here, they put the spiritual core at the center of the whole soldier. We can do this in civil society. We can do this in universities. We can do this in our jobs. We can do this as human beings individually, one another. We can reboot our lives to say the most important thing in my life is my relationship to my higher power. And from there, all other forms of fitness will follow. I will go to the gym. I will take care of my nutrition. I will sleep and take care of my body. Socially, I will be good to people. I'll treat them as sisters and brothers. I know them as children of God, emanations of, like, rays of the sun of the universe. Physically, socially, emotionally, when we take emotion as saying, hey, what if, just like putting my finger on a hot stove, emotion is touching something real. I'm angry because I'm seeing that I did something wrong or someone did something wrong to me. I'm sad because there is a loss. What if emotion's right? Just like burning your finger on the stove. So we're not stuck there with a burnt finger. We can say, okay, I'm living in a way that's making me or other people sad. I'm living in a way or exposing myself to people that's making me or them angry. Let's start there as saying that's true. Hand that over. Okay, higher power. Okay, God. Show me. I open my heart. I turn to you. I hand this to you. Show me. And you may just get an image. I'll just speak from the first person. I remember once, my husband, we're very in love. We've been married 30 years, 3 kids, and we were having this, week or two of friction. And I handed it over. I said, show me, God. What will help us through this rough patch? And what came was a picture of my husband looking really healthy, really hearty, really fed. Now, I mean, it's not like we weren't eating. There was plenty of food in the house. I think he'd been starving emotionally. I realized I had to bring it more. I had to give him more nourishment emotionally. That was the image God put in my path. God will show us what the people around us need or what we need, ways of being. So physically, I'm more likely to take care of myself. Socially, I'm better to other people. Emotionally, if I can take my failures as learning and other people's failures as learning, then I have a chance to hand that over and see a reset, see another way of being. The trap of anger and guilt and rage and shame and blame, that doesn't go anywhere. It just doesn't go anywhere but down. And we all have these moments, and we all have these downward tunnels. It's not like anyone's a bad guy or a good guy. That's exactly what we can take and hand over. The downward spiral, the anger, the guilt, the shame. And an image or a synchronicity or some type of opening will come. And if we miss it the first time, it'll come back. This is an abundant, generous universe. If we keep showing up in our heart and in our perception, our eyes, seeing the dialogue.
Like we were talking about earlier, I feel like those unwilling experiences are the best launching pads for that spiritual awakening. But for somebody who's listening who maybe isn't necessarily going through a tough time, but feel like they need something more, they need that spiritual foundation, where is somebody supposed to start? Because that can be kind of an overwhelming or a daunting thing to try to undertake.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So it's one thing to be told you're built with a brain that can awaken. It's one thing to be told you naturally are wired up for spirituality. It's another to do it, to say, okay, step 1, help me here. Right.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's dusting off a rusty prayer, something familiar, going back to a place where they felt alive and connected. A childhood house of worship or a place where they sat by their grandparents or
Mm.
recovering the sacred text of their tradition. For some people, it's a way through a road that has been paved long ago. And for others, it can be trying to feel the connection for the first time. Now, in truth, we've all had little bits of this, but maybe walked right by it, not known it for what it really is. We've all had moments of feeling this great love or a sense of oneness, or a stranger on the street is so kind and we realize we're all connected, or maybe we do something really nice for someone and we're full and whole and we think, that's really how we're built. There is a way in that I learned from one of my teachers long ago. I always like to thank my own teachers. The late Dr. Gary Weaver worked with people who felt really disconnected from a transcendent relationship from their higher power. And he taught me a way to help people connect. Do you want to try it?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, beautiful. This is in the language of life. It's a very gentle, non-daunting just invitation. And it takes 90 seconds. So I'll invite you
Perfect.
to just, good. Okay, I invite you to close your eyes, take 5 breaths. Inside your inner chamber with your eyes closed, I invite you, if you'd like, in your inner chamber to set before you a table. This is your table. And to your table, you may invite anyone, living or deceased, who truly has your best interest in mind. Anyone living or deceased who truly has your best interest in mind, your best interest. And with them all sitting there, ask them if they love you. And now you may invite your higher self, the part of you that is so much more than anything you may have done or not done, anything you may have or not have, your true, eternal, higher self. And ask you if you love you. And finally, you may invite your higher power. Whatever word is yours, however you know your higher power. And ask your higher power if they love you. And now with all of these people sitting here right now, what do they need to tell you now? What do you need to know? What do they need to tell you now? And when you're ready, I invite you back.
That was beautiful.
Were you surprised by who showed up?
By one person actually. I was surprised. I feel like just like the childlike version of who I was. Just like I
Ah,
saw an image of like who I was as a little kid at the table.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How did it feel at the table?
Very warm, very welcoming.
Did it feel sure and certain that you are never alone? You have a table of
Yes.
people.
Yes.
So you are
Yeah.
loved and you are never alone.
And that only takes 90 seconds.
Did you get any guidance?
Um, I wouldn't say guidance as more so of just reassurance.
The message was reassurance.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
need to know? It was a reassurance. Yeah.
Yeah. A reassurance.
So hosting counsel is something that is there for all of us. We always have right by our side those who truly have our best interest in mind. It might be a grandparent that shows up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people are surprised. They're like, I hadn't thought about this friend in 20 years, but he always had my back.
Mm.
Very moving. the love that's around us, real love. This is real, whether they are living or deceased. Their soul loves your soul. Their soul walks with your soul. It's very important. And then your higher self is so much more than your failures or your wins. There's people who have said, I was cut from the team. I thought I was going to play in college. I was cut. There's people who say was all excited about this job. It went well for 2 years. I haven't gotten a job since then. You're so much more than that. You're so much more than what you've done or not done. You're so much more than what you have or don't have. You're infinite. Your higher self is infinite. You can see it's a direct line to God, the higher power. And you're wise beyond measure. You're infinitely wise. That's your higher self. And
Yeah.
then, of course, the third chair people, some people see Jesus, some people see a bright light, some people see the Gulf of Mexico. The third chair is yours to visualize, but there is one source of life, and they are there for you.
That's what I'm most fascinated about because I feel like for me, it's never been a visualization when it
Mm,
comes to a higher power or a
mm,
Lord, but it's just a deep feeling. Like when you said that, it's not like I saw something, but I just felt
mm.
deeper. It was just like
And
a deeper physiological feeling.
in your body, you
Yeah,
felt.
just like
Yes.
just a deeper groundedness. And that's what it's always been like. It's never been visualization, but more so just feeling.
The presence of God comes in on different channels for different people.
Yeah.
So you may be a kinesthetic knower, one who
Yeah.
feels and knows with your body. Do you ever have intuitions in your body? Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. And I can also give a very spiritual story to that kinesthetic knowing.
Oh, will you? Yeah.
So I dealt with a lot of bad chronic back pain and no conventional treatments helped me and was just dealing with debilitating pain throughout my entire body for 7 months or so. And it was a real mind body treatment plan and understanding how I had gotten into this neurological wiring of still feeling physical pain, that breaking that wiring is what helped me get out of pain basically. But there was a moment when I was in mass where the work that was helping me just really wasn't helping and I was feeling a lot of debilitating pain. And then we got to this moment in mass where I was kneeling down and we all recite together, Lord, I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof, but only say the word and my soul shall be healed. And as we said those words, especially almost like the snap of a finger, when I said the word healed, I just felt everything release from my body. And
Wow.
it didn't just feel like in the moment the pain was going away, but it felt like from that entire experience, I was being guided toward that moment so that I could feel the beauty of just that massive release. Because I always had told myself when I had no hope or evidence that I would get better, I would always just be like, there's got to be a reason for this. There's got to be a reason for this. And that's where that deeper spirituality came from for me. Like when I didn't have anything to prove that I was going to get better, spirituality was really the only thing that I could fall back on. And in that moment, that was that proof and that evidence of, well, here's your reason.
What a glorious, glorious, miraculous healing. The presence of God, the presence of the source of all life, who in that instant.
Yeah, I mean, it's from that moment on, it was just things changed for good. There was, like we said, there was no going back to who I was. That truly shifted me and showed me this awakening and this awakened brain.
what did it feel like for you? How did it change you? How are you now different?
Just a greater sense of no matter what, I'm always on the right path. Like, because for 7 months, I was just like getting beat up, and I'm like, man, I may never get better here. And, it was the toughest time of my life. But then that alchemized into such a beautiful moment, and me being able to reflect back and with such pride and be like, man, like, look at what I was able to endure. And it led me to believe if something that was so bad has turned into something so beautiful, anything that I encounter in life, how could I possibly bring that old perception into things where I'm like, oh man, this sucks that this happened? Like, how could I possibly do that anymore?
So now if something comes along that's not what you wanted, what do you say to yourself, or what do you know and see to be true?
I mean, it's not like I won't be like, this sucks. Like, I think that's delusional not to be like, if something, bad happens and be like, oh, this is a good thing. Like, I think that can be actually unhealthy. It's sort of like allowing myself to feel that crumminess, but also having that deeper knowing of this is the path you're supposed to walk down. So it's just that deeper level, going back to the word reassurance. I've always have that deeper level of reassurance with me.
Wow. Wow. Reassurance, your word in how you experienced the message from your counsel was
Yeah.
reassurance.
Yeah. And that's why I said
Wow.
it again there too. Even when, I could be, doubting every single moment of every single day, it still feels like at the end of the day, I can still fall back on that, so to speak. I don't like using I don't like using the phrase fall back on, but just having that knowing.
That knowing, that reassurance. Yeah,
Yeah.
reassurance. I like that so much. So it's not that I wanted her to break up with me. It's not that I wanted to be fired. I could still be really disappointed or afraid about how I'm going to pay the rent, or really hit in the heart. But I am reassured that I am where I'm supposed to be and I'm on my path. And there are doors that may open up before me.
Exactly. Exactly.
Do you want to perhaps explore the road of life practice?
Would love to. I think it's a perfect
Good,
place to do it.
good. Yeah, I invite you to take 5 breaths, close your eyes, clear out your inner space. I invite you to think of a time where you wanted something so badly. That red door was yours. It was him or her to say yes. It was that job or internship. It was that place to live, the city you wanted to go to. You did A plus B plus C to make it happen. Tactically, strategically, you go for your red door, but it's stuck. How can it be stuck? A plus B plus C. You have no choice. You might be angry or depressed, but you have to pivot. You pivot 50, 100, 110 degrees, and there, over there is a wide open yellow door, a shining yellow door. You might have said you never heard of yellow doors, or yellow doors don't exist. On the other side of the yellow door is someone who makes you feel alive, is a job that is more right for you, where you're seen for gifts you may not have even known you had. You join a community that makes you feel alive. This yellow door has so much to do with who you are and where you are today. This yellow door was not what you'd wanted. It was better, and better for you. And as you sit back now, you think of that stuck red door and the hairpin turn, taking you to the wide open yellow door that has so much to do with who you are today. Was there anyone at that hairpin turn pointing the way, giving you information? A friend, a counselor, a grandparent? a trail angel. It could have been someone you met for 2 minutes at a coffee shop, a party. It could have been someone you've known for years, a trail angel pointing you to the yellow door. And as you sit way back, stuck red door, hairpin turn trail angel, and wide open yellow door that has so much to do with where you are and who you are today. How really are the most important parts of our lives found? Is it only through control and planning? Sure, we've got to do our part and work hard. But are some of the most important parts of our lives not totally planned, not totally controlled, but found in dialogue with the deeper nature of life? Trail angels, open yellow doors. Is there a force in us and through us and around us guiding? And are you an open system in dialogue with this deeper force? Are we less makers of our path and more discoverers of our journey? And as a discoverer, have you actually been on a spiritual path all along? A spiritual path. When you're ready, I invite you back.
Discover of the path. That resonates a lot. And I think that's a freeing
Say
feeling.
more. Tell me more.
When people can appreciate that, being a discoverer rather than a maker.
What did you discover? What opened? What was the yellow door for you, Tim?
I just think that when I was going through all of that pain, it took me away from the life that I was trying to make. And there was a little bit of a crumbling and a destruction, or I needed to take a step back. And then once I began to heal and get better, I went back on that path, but walking in a different way. So it's not so much, I guess, that the path had changed, but the way that I was moving on the path began to change after that.
The new way of moving. How do you explain that to someone? How would they step inside of Tim and know that seed of being?
I guess to put an analogy onto it, almost like you're on a treadmill rather than on a trail. So it's like you're just staying in place, but the path is moving.
Wow. Wow. So you feel the path comes to you now?
Not all the time, but
Yeah.
definitely more than I ever would have felt before that.
Yeah.
I would say it's a give and a take, but more so than I would have ever felt.
Are you in this sort of conversation with life, like a dialogue?
Oh, yeah, 100%. But that also comes from the physiological as well, because that's what I had gotten from chronic pain, where it was that pain was a message. It didn't mean something that was wrong, but it was more so of a message that needed to be deciphered. So meditation and what I call talking with my brain was a huge part of my healing process. And I think that talking with your brain is, like you're saying, that conversation with life. And there will be times where maybe I do feel like a little physical sensation or here and there. And instead of, I take that as the signal to go deeper into that conversation with myself and that conversation with life.
Would you consider sharing a bit? How does that conversation go?
I would say it's just coming from a place of,
What do you literally say?
it's a lot of questions that I ask myself, but also a sense of detachment where I talk a lot in the third person. So it'll be like, what's stressing Tim out? So that, like, there is that little bit of separation between consciousness and identity.
Tim, as you shared that, what came to my mind was an observing eye over Tim.
Yeah,
What's stressing Tim out from the higher observing eye.
that's exactly what it feels like. And it's interesting because going back to that unwilling component, when the pain was the worst for me, it was the easiest to access that. And that's what goes, I think, to that eventual beauty of unwilling pain or unwilling sufferings where you're able to access that more.
You know, one or two times I've been in a car accident, and right as we're about to crash, it's as if everything slows down, and I'm witnessing the car accident from the position of way up high, the observing eye.
Mm,
Dr. Lisa's about to be in a car accident. It's the observing
yeah.
eye sees, right? And I think that's a way to hold on to the notion that there's a higher viewpoint that we all can take. What's stressing Tim out? Dr. Lisa's about to be in a car accident. There's a higher viewpoint, and it's there for us. And the way you put it is a very nice road, a nice welcome into the observing eye.
I want to dive deeper into your work now with mental health and depression because I think that's what can be a huge unlock for people within. All right, how does this spirituality actually, okay, like you're talking about spirituality within health, but I guess give me some more proof actually.
Mm.
Um, Talk to me about your work there and how depression and spirituality are deeply intertwined.
If we look at the numbers, people who build the spiritual life, and again, I could be Christian or Hindu or spiritual and not religious, whatever my path. When we build our spiritual life, we are 80% less likely to become addicted. We are 2/3 less likely to become depressed. The benefits on mental health are huge. There's nothing else in the published science as profoundly protective against the diseases of despair, depression, addiction, anxiety. Nothing is robustly protective for us as a strong spiritual life. And, there's a tricky back door here, too. Sometimes driving down the highway 80 miles an hour, that's a really risky thing to do. We're less likely to do that, too, when we have 70% less likely to jump out the second story window at a party, things that could really ruin our lives. When we have a strong spiritual core, 70% less likely to take dangerous risks. So we are healthier, we are happier, we are more resilient when we build the spiritual core. The data is very strong and very clear. So if I were feeling like I was having a hard time grappling with addiction, I would go to AA and I would open up in my heart a conversation with the higher power. If I were struggling with drugs and alcohol, I would say, what higher power are you showing me? Can I hand this to you? I can't do this alone. Right? If I were struggling with depression, and I have in my life at times had real depressions. God, higher power, please let me feel that you've got me. Let me feel your embrace. Let me feel your buoyance. Let me feel your love. And it just may come cascading forward, right? There is a way in which if we ask and open, as we're built to open, be an open system, the deeper presence in life, the sacred force in life comes forward, who I call God. You use your word. Uh, and it's there for all of us. Nobody's left out. We're all built to open to the deeper force of life. And the sacred presence is there for all of us. It's our choice to then open our hearts in dialogue.
What if the condition we pathologize and diagnose as depression is sometimes actually spiritual hunger?
Very often, in fact, roughly 2/3 of the time, when we are struggling with despair, it is actually the grappling, the existential hunger that we yearn for more. And I don't mean more like I wish I had a nicer car or a cuter partner. I mean the more inside to actually, that hunger is us feeling something real and true, which is we are meant to expand. It's really a bang, a knock at the door to expand and be more inside, open up our heart more, feel God's love more, see into life more deeply as a sacred path. feel the assurance and reassurance of the deeper force in life. So feeling not enoughness doesn't mean that I'm not successful enough or fit enough or have enough followers or money. The not enoughness comes from inside, and it's an accurate not enoughness that it's time to grow and expand spiritually. It is a gentle invitation. And we don't need to have the answers. We don't need to know, what's the playbook for how to grow spiritually. We can hand it over to God, and we will be guided and shown. Depression then is a developmental depression. It's not against us, it's for us. A knock at the door to an awakening about 2/3 of the time. And then about 1/3 of the time, we can be medically ill and we should get treatment. We should get medication or psychotherapy, and that's good. And still hand it over.
It's so fascinating with that viewpoint. Then it's like depression doesn't mean that there's something wrong, but it's just a manifestation, and your job and your work is to go deeper and to decipher that manifestation, and what that manifestation is asking for is spiritual awakening.
Your soul aches to grow, and the ache is good. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that reframing. That's something that helped me a ton with chronic pain. It's not so much of what's wrong with me, how do I get rid of this, but what is this asking me to look at? And I think that could really be an unlock for people. But it's so fascinating from the mental health component side of things.
An unlock. That's the perfect word.
And is it also with people with depression? Are you saying that it wouldn't just help them, but are they also going to be the most neurologically receptive to it naturally, or no?
Tim, the very same part of our brain that is very sensitive and can show cortical thinness when we're depressed, in depression, is the very same part of the brain that seems to respond to spiritual life. In other words, we are built with a very sensitive brain. And the more open we are and the more perceptive we are and the more we bring our heart to things, you wear your heart on your sleeve, the more that we feel, the more we take in the world. It can feel great. It can stab us in the heart. The more we feel. Well, we have a choice in times of pain, either to go down the spiral, the rabbit hole, or in that very moment, develop a spiritual response to suffering. If we choose to practice, it's like going to the gym. It's a choice, a discipline, a spiritual response to suffering. We build the muscle and see over time in our study, over 8 years, there was cortical thickness. Really, we can build the brain, like build the muscle, cortical thickness across the regions of the awakened brain. So yes, we're all built to awaken, but the choice and the discipline to say, hey, God, what do you ask of me now? What are you showing me now? What is this unlock? Greatest word, Tim, the spiritual unlock. That is a practice. And when we do, we receive the assurance and love, we receive the guidance, and we know we're never alone, that your counsel table is full up. Yeah.
You've said you've always seen data as human stories. How has
Yes.
that focus on the micro deepened your view of what's possible to shift on a macro level?
Science is a language that is very transformative of our major institutions. Some of the most skillful institutions in our society using the science are the Pentagon. The Pentagon's very skillful at using good cutting edge science to make important decisions and programs. Increasingly, medical institutions are listening to the science of spirituality, of the awakened brain, of the extraordinary benefits of cultivating our awakened brain in recovery and renewal and getting out of the despair and the tunnel of depression or trauma. And so we are seeing major institutional changes in becoming a more awakened society. Therapies that draw on the spiritual heart, schools that listen to the spiritual hunger of college students. College students are emerging as effectively spiritual warriors. They are people who have tremendous gift, and yet to not speak of the spiritual life in college, that would take the spear out of their hand when they're trying to fight for good. I mean, you gotta elevate and allow your generation to inherit the mantle of a more spiritual society.
Yeah, like we were talking about at the start of our conversation, I feel like the past decade was about bringing more transparency to mental health, and there have been huge strides there. And now the next step is that spiritual health pillar. And like you were saying, putting that at the center. And I like to hope and think that it's just a matter of walking that path and a matter of allowing the path to unfold rather than necessarily needing to create that type of change from happening. Um, Dr. Miller, it's been incredible talking with you. You bring so much language and research to things I feel like I've experienced within my own life, but never knew how to fully express or understand, but always just felt internally. So just great appreciation for you and your work to bring such a conscious awareness and understanding to that. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people who would feel the same way.
Tim, thank you for sharing your profound spiritual journey.
Is there anywhere else that you'd want to send people so that they can learn more about you or your work?
Thank you, Tim. I share on Instagram, dr.lisa Miller, dr.lisa Miller, where I'll share our discussion here now.
Awesome. Great talking with you.